Hello everybody, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Let's Play Hearts of Iron 3 as Italy, number 11. We left off having initiated Operation Black Ice, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Our main thrust, Operation Caucasus, has been doing very well. Our naval thrust, Operation Deportation, has met with some limited success. We have taken over Crimea, and overall the situation is fairly positive there. The thrust of opportunity, Operation Breadbasket, made significant gains and was then somewhat repulsed by the Soviet forces. Ultimately, the final thrust, Operation Starbreaker, is looking horrifically unrealistic. Operation Deportation probably won't meet the majority of its expectations, but has secured Crimea. At this point, we are in the midst of a massive Soviet counterattack throughout the Ukrainian region, and also partially into Romania and areas around that general location. So, Operation Black Ice is now basically done. That is no longer anything we're doing. Operation Bearing Our Burdens is basically going to be the defense of what we own in the Ukraine. We're basically going to give up these provinces, defend at the river. Here we have significant armored presence, which will hopefully hold against the plains. We have forces nearing Odessa. Hopefully we'll be able to secure Odessa and a slight causeway to just maintain throughput of supplies to our forces in Crimea, so we don't have to send everything through Sevastopol. In this area, we do have our defense on the river primarily. This area is probably going to be lost, at least to an extent. We'll hopefully get some additional forces in over here. We have... Whoops, didn't mean to make that. We do have some armored units which we'll be able to use to repel and launch a slight counterattack against these Soviet forces, hopefully driving them back at least some small distance. The largest success we have achieved against the Soviet Union is this encirclement and pocket of all of these Soviet forces. It isn't really the greatest gain. They are mainly infantry or cavalry, just kind of Soviet back burner defender units that really probably weren't the most significant force. However, we will reduce and hopefully destroy this pocket, which will free up considerable forces to hopefully press north and surround a little bit more of the Soviet army, hopefully doing a little bit of damage. Encirclements are probably going to be the go-to thing, as we definitely did underestimate the fullest extent of Soviet forces and generally just their strength in the field. So we will probably face a little bit of a declining situation there. The Germans, even with our entry into the war, are still losing. They've only pressed forward in apparently one province in the far north. Everywhere else they are on the decline. The Japanese, if they are making gains, they're really just not considerable gains whatsoever, and don't really have that much of an effect on the war. Really, the biggest priority is that we're going to maintain this area until this pocket is reduced and destroyed. We're going to try to hold this causeway. This is the most important causeway we can hold, as it really does just... It's really the entry and exit point for all of the supplies going into Crimea. We'll go ahead and look at the supply map mode. Everything is going through there. So, yes, we'll see how that all rolls through as time goes on. We don't really need to look at this map, as it's basically just defend ourselves, and this show of the lines, we really don't need to see that for now. We'll check on it again, probably in a few months' time. With all that said and done, though, let's get back into it. We are being fought right here, which is slightly unfortunate. We should probably get a few forces over into the region to defend Odessa, as that is going to be a somewhat major part of this campaign, the defense of that region. We could probably bring some of our armored divisions over to Odessa and that region to just ensure its survival, as it is very important for our long-term, really just ability to fight there. We will leave an armored unit there. This armored unit will actually replace the previous one, and it looks as though we actually already did lose the corridor, so I was wrong about that. Well, let's see if we can't free it. If we can retake that corridor, well, actually no, we probably can't. We'll in fact just give up on that as a feasible tactical option. Alright, well, that's less than ideal, but it isn't so terribly bad that it'll be just a disaster for us. We will bring some additional armored units up, hopefully clean that area up a little bit. If we're able to hold on to Odessa, then that's just always going to be good news. We'll probably retreat this very wounded group, or this very disorganized group. Apparently we have lost the battle because that one group ran out of organization. So we'll have those mechanized units go in to reinforce, and hopefully that'll do some good. It looks as though the Soviets are launching a considerable counterattack. And it doesn't look as though we'll really be able to do very much about that. Once these mechanized units get there, though, we'll hopefully have a bit of a better time of it. They just need to survive long enough to get the rest of our forces out. This battle's going pretty poorly, which is not good at all. The pocket will hopefully be reduced fairly quickly, though. Can we just charge through? We can hopefully do that. This armored unit, I guess they'll roll up there for whatever reason and just keep going. Everyone else, let's just have you move forward. 27, 29, we'll just roll around. Alright, so that battle is going very poorly, which is far less than ideal. Hopefully by launching that interdicting fight, they will slow down at least somewhat. Alright, we did lose that battle, and let's see what we're able to do. Can these forces roll on up and fight? Why aren't they fighting? Alright, so we are getting pushed back in the Caucasus Mountain area, which isn't ideal. However, as long as we're able to destroy that pocket before the Soviets push us back, then we're still in a decent spot. This disorganized unit's going to keep retreating. This group will charge forward and do a little bit of damage. We'll probably fall back and defend the river, but we don't want to have these forces get encircled and destroyed, as that would be a pretty big disaster for us. Alright, losing territories, winning the occasional battle. Overall, not necessarily a good or bad thing going on in this area. We'll even take this armored unit and move them north. We'll take all those armored units and move them north, because we don't really need very many forces to destroy that pocket. All these provinces being lost to the Soviets, not really a big deal at this point. Alright, and we'll hopefully be able to get at least most of these people back. We could probably just rebase this group and pick them up. We have won the Battle of Odessa, yay us. And we are facing a bit of an issue defending up here, though not anything too terrible. 2 armored units are going up. These 2 armored units are staying in reserve for the moment. And that group will go reinforce up here. We have all of these forces in position. If we're able to defend this territory, then we may as well stay in Odessa. If we are unable to defend the territory, though, then we really shouldn't. And we won the Battle of Odessa, which is pretty good news. I'm considering just taking out all of these unorganized forces and transporting them back, just so we don't have to worry about them lowering our organization and weakening the defense of the city. The armored units will hopefully be able to get up in time, and as long as we're able to defend Chisinau, we're pretty good, pretty well off. Alright, so with that all said and done, that's all more or less taken care of. I don't really think we're going to have to worry so terribly badly about that. We'll rebase here in Istanbul, and probably just sit right here. Alright, there we go. It looks as though the Soviet advance is starting to break down a little bit. Oh, never mind. It's actually going very, very powerfully into us. Now that they have those armored units assisting. India's kind of a lost cause. We'll just look at it. So the Americans are doing a lot into China. The Japanese appear to be taking some provinces back, which is good. Hopefully they will be a hassle. The Americans are getting a bit of naval force superiority, as you can tell, because they're taking their islands back. It really remains to be seen how that plays out, but it will play out without our interference. And as long as we're just able to keep digging through this pocket, I'm not too concerned about this region. We'll bring more of our forces up. Can we just attack that group? Nope, let's not do that. That was terrible. We'll probably use mountain groups for the majority of these battles. Right there we did fairly well, which is nice. So mountain troops will probably lead the way until we can get through the Caucasus Mountains. This area looks as though it is more or less holding itself together. We'll probably retreat out of Sevastopol, or out of Odessa. Sevastopol will keep for probably forever. Alright, we're going to retreat from there, and in fact, I'm too worried about our men getting encircled, so we will pull out of Odessa. It's just not worth it. While it is a very nice city to have, and it is a rather defensive point, it has too high of odds that we will get our forces destroyed if we stay there. So we will retreat and abandon Odessa. One day we will hopefully return and seize the city once more. That day is not today. Where are all these units? We have more mechanized forces, so we aren't quite... We still have a considerable army. Never think that we don't. We are still powerful. We're still a legitimate force to be reckoned with. We might even make a breakout attempt over here in Crimea, as we do have a lot of units in the area. We'll probably even take one of these armored units, bring it down to Sevastopol, bring all of these forces down to Sevastopol, in fact, and just weaken that front a little bit, but not in a way that's really going to be a threat or a problem. This group will go to Kilaya, so it will act as basically just defensively. We do have an issue with all these Soviet forces, what am I saying? All these Soviet forces are just storming into Hungary, which is probably going to be a threat later on. Maybe not right now. We did win this battle. Oh no, we lost that battle. That's very bad. Okay, all these armored units are going to rush forward and hopefully make a counterattack. We are under attack in Cherson, now that we're pulling some of our forces away from it. Now the only real risk is that once we get to this area that the Soviets will be able to really just press us back with relative ease. I don't want that to happen, that would be a disaster. Second Armada, let's rebase you here, or let's rebase you in Istanbul, but keep you here. And that did lower the Soviets' ability to attack quite considerably. All these air units are going to have to rebase further back since we lost Odessa, or we are in the process of losing Odessa. And that's less than ideal, but not so much that it'll really negatively affect us. We do have this armored unit, and now it is back there, and we won the battle, so we'll probably just be forced to keep these units where they're at. We'll move the headquarters back so that it doesn't just stay on the front line and get beaten by the enemy. We did win this battle right here for Grozny. Can we destroy that force? Probably not. They at least have supply issues. It doesn't actually look as though they do to the extent that I would like. Alright, we'll just send this group up. And these infantry groups will also start going up. Our line is pretty thin on the ground through most of this region, which is less than ideal. We'll try to go into this pocket here, let's see, or this salient, as military people will call it. And it isn't going great, but it isn't going terribly either. And hopefully it'll go in our favor as time progresses. This unit will send across the river. Mass assault advance. We'll send this group up and over, this group also up and over. And it looks like we're beating them quicker than they're beating us, which is always nice. Alright, And hopefully we'll be able to get these forces forward and into this province before the Soviets get there. And it looks as though we don't really have to worry about that too much. What we can do is get all of these forces, now that they're slightly back to being organized. We'll take all of them and we'll try to make a thrust over here to rescue the Hungarians and also the Nazis. Let's help these Nazis. That's where we're at as a people. We've got to defend the Nazis if we want to survive. Alright, so yeah, yay us. We are definitely on the right side of history on this one. These forces will go over here so they can cross the river and stop just fighting that horrible battle across the river. It looks as though we are now under attack in a few locations. The Battle of Grozny is going negatively for us. We'll go reinforce. And it looks as though we immediately won the Battle of Grozny. This force will go around there, and we might actually get some limited advancement over in the Caucasus Mountain region. So that's nice. These forces aren't really on the front line anymore, so we'll rush them forward to support the armor as they move up. And yeah, so long as we're able to rush up and take over this river, we will, one, limit the amount of territory that the Germans and Hungarians and their allies have to defend, which will be very helpful because then they'll be able to dedicate more forces to the rest of their front, and we'll have a defensible location with which we can actually hold out. Overall, all very good things. We'll also keep up the progress over here, and the situation is not actually that desperate. Yay. So yeah, that's really good. Not actually that desperate may not sound like the most hopeful thing in the universe, but really it isn't bad. I mean, if the... yeah, it's just not bad. We'll leave it at that. We may have underestimated the amount of a fight we're going to have to deal with to get these territories out of the hands of the Soviet Union. But, you know, that's war. War is underestimation and then reconciliation with the actual situation on the ground. And as long as we are reasonable with our actions, as long as we properly estimate the capability of the Soviet Union to respond and react in kind, then I think that this is something we will be able to pull off. We're not dead yet. We will probably not die at all. And we can defeat the Soviet Union. It is something very much on the table. Let's see if we can add a war goal. We can't until February 3rd. On February 3rd, we will add a war goal. And admittedly, we are trying to puppet the Soviet Union, so any amount of their armies that we can keep alive would help us in the very long run. However, we're probably not going to focus too hard on that because they are still going to be a major threat, and the only way we're going to be able to destroy them enough to puppet them will be if we do take out considerable numbers of their forces. We're going to go ahead and rebase here in Sevastopol very quickly to just pull away most of our forces. I don't think we really need to defend against a Soviet naval invasion. So we'll just pull everyone but the corps back. We'll transport some forces over here and see if we can't make a little breakout. Now, emphasis on little, it's not going to be the biggest breakout we've ever done. And it probably won't have the most considerable effect in the war and on the world in general, but it'll have a decent effect, we can hope. We'll bring some additional forces up in order to just ensure the survival of our line and free up some of our mechanized units to areas which will probably be more dynamic, as this area will probably be pretty static in comparison. We do have a lot of Marines making up the majority of our defensive forces here. That's not terrible. Let's see, the battle isn't going too very well, which is not ideal. We'll move this force over to here, and this force will rebase back in Istanbul so it doesn't absorb all of the supplies of the armies. And it looks as though this is kind of unrealistic, so we'll just stop the attack. However, they can't really attack us either. So it's a bit of a stalemate. Right here, we will take a mechanized unit and bring it over. We will see if we're able to start making some gains through this area. It's pretty much up in the air whether we will be able to or not. Through here, it looks as though we are facing the biggest opportunity for progression in the front. We'll even roll some forces away from the back end of this area. All of these armored units really should be in the front and not manning the line, as that's really not their utility. Like, for instance, this armored unit is doing exactly what we want our armored units to be doing in a general sense. Let's see if we can attack there. No, we really can't. We'll leave the slightly less organized force and take the more organized force over and around. We could attack with the other one. We'll just try to move around and get a larger, basically just control over the territory. We might want to take another one of these mountain units and bring it over. That might be helpful or not. It really remains to be seen. Ultimately, our armored unit is losing quite a bit of its organization. They're losing organization slightly quicker, which is very good. Hopefully we'll be able to roll around and just destroy the remaining Soviet forces over there and bring this armored unit up. We will launch a counterattack, a little thrust over here, hoping to seize that area and encircle all of the Soviet forces. If that's something we can achieve, that will be great. We'll take these armored units. We don't need them to defend the line, or, I mean, at least I hope we don't. All these infantry units will flood up and hopefully secure that area to bridge the gap there. Oil refining we can't research, so we won't. Let's see, technology. We can start researching 1946 techs, so let's do that. Our anti-aircraft and all that is coming behind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go, that's all that. We can't research that anymore, so we won't try. As soon as we get that to 140%, we're going to really shift our focus back to technology, as technology is always going to be very important. The Americans are still making gains, although rather slowly. They did press the Japanese out of those areas, and they are taking the Philippines back. So, if we're able to defeat the Soviet Union, this war will keep on keeping on. Oh, that's bad. Alright, we're just going to fall back from there, as we really don't have the organization to defend it. We'll keep this force where it's at, and once we get that force back in the field and ready to go, we'll keep charging forward. This group will go, let's see, I guess, we'll just charge straight in to see what happens. Alright, so we are making some gains over here. Maybe not the most considerable of gains, but gains nonetheless. Maybe not permanent, maybe not a lot of things, but gains. Alright, let's see what we can do here with these forces. Alright, we'll take one group of armor, we'll take the most powerful group of armor, and 2 of our mechanized, and we'll charge forward. And we are doing fairly well against the Soviets here. That's very good news. We'll take this group of mechanized and bring them up. This group of mechanized will also start rolling up, this group as well. And we're just going to take as many forces as we can, as far as we can. These 2 groups of armored are also going to roll up because we won't need them in the back if we are actually able to make some considerable gains up ahead. These groups are going to keep going around and just trying to destroy those Soviet forces still left behind. Alright, these units are both back there, so we'll charge them back into the province, hopefully winning it back with relative ease, although that is really up in the air if that's feasible or not. It looks as though we are facing enemy ground attacks. Can our air intercept forces get there? No, they apparently cannot. So we will just have to deal with Soviet air superiority in that instance. We could probably drop our Marines back into Odessa so they don't have control over that airfield anymore, so let's go ahead and pluck up at least a portion of our armored units. Apparently we're getting a slight attack right there. Can we win this battle? Maybe, perhaps. At any rate, we are still making decent gains on most areas. We are facing a really negative battle right there. They'll probably be able to push us back somewhat, although it isn't too worrying. We will just give them the territory, as it doesn't matter too much for our long-term strategic interests. As, really, the further they press in here, the more of their forces will be able to pocket. Alright, our Navy has landed there. We can pick up, let's see, we will leave those units behind. We'll pick up everybody else. We will rebase here in Istanbul to just get them out of that supply zone. Hopefully the Soviets don't attempt to make an attack there, although they might. We will drop our forces back in Odessa, as that is a relatively significant force and position to hold. Alright, we are making considerable progress against these Soviet forces. Hopefully we'll be able to get our armored units and other forces up quickly. Just how quickly remains to be seen, but hopefully with some relative speed. We are facing a lot of issues actually getting our forces there. We'll send the Marines and hopefully manage to take Odessa back. If we are able to do that, then we might drop off an armored unit or two. This battle is now going considerably less well. However, we did just knock out one of the Soviet forces. We will stop this battle. We will leave all of these units behind now, and we'll charge again. Apparently they are launching a counterattack against us, but that's not too much of a threat. We are making gains in the Caucasus Mountain front. We're hopefully going to take Odessa back with ease. We'll probably pluck up that group of armor, some disgruntled English rabble. We'll go retake that. Oh, apparently the Americans are in Norway, which is not great. They might land on the United Kingdom at some point, and that would be a really considerable loss for us if they do. And we don't really have the forces or transports to go and reinforce, which is obviously less than ideal for a lot of reasons. It looks as though they are definitely trying to cut us off over here, but they're facing just terrible chances doing so. Weirdly enough, the Soviets are making considerable attempts to defend right there. I'm not sure just how well that'll go for them. Probably worryingly well. Let's launch that second attack. And I guess you'll see how that's going in a moment. Can we see this, please? Come on. Are they not even attacking? Guys, let's do this. Let's attack. Apparently it was immediately called off. Did I immediately call it off? I don't believe I did, but evidently I did. Alright, that's annoying. That gives the Soviets a few hours to recoup their losses and get back into the fight. We do have night fighting equipment, though, which they don't. Alright, please attack. Alright, okay, yeah, so apparently we just won that battle instantly is what happened. We didn't accidentally call them off or anything like that. We just won. Alright, so these forces are going to just storm up with the others. Let's see, this group is fully organized. It's also going to just storm up. Alright. So there was a moment where it was tempting to give in to the prospect of just terrible despair at the thought that our invasion of the Soviet Union was going to just collapse into horrible, horrible slogging brutality where we just get destroyed. Luckily, it looks as though that moment has passed. Alright, we've won that battle. We'll just keep charging forward, and we might actually be able to pocket all those forces. We'll pick up this armored unit. We'll leave behind a mechanized force, and we'll roll back over to here, making a quick note to set up Istanbul as our rebase location. Alright, and we'll transport them over to there. Please go. Please transport. Guys, come on. Transport. Alright, we'll just have to rebase. But then we'll just rebase back to Istanbul. It's just a slightly less quick way of doing that. Slightly slower, slightly more tedious. Doesn't really matter all that much. This unit's going to charge forward, this unit as well. We only need 5 more provinces and we'll cut the Soviets off and be in a defensive location. These forces are still making their gains. And we're winning just handedly on all those areas. These forces are going to go roll up and provide some sort of defense so that we don't get encircled ourselves. These troops are going to keep charging forward. Everybody go forward as quickly as you can, as far as you can. And these guys, well, okay, we're just going to send these guys up and hopefully defend that. The Soviets are making some counterattacks, and they might make some gains in it, which is worrying, but not so much so that I'm too overly concerned. Alright, that's just a group of infantry, so we'll probably go in with... We have quite a few forces. We'll just go in with 1 armor and 1 mechanized and see if that's enough. It is, by the looks of it. Alright, what do we have all here? We'll send another mechanized unit there just to be completely sure of our defense. It is going to be vital that we maintain our forces, as this is a considerable amount of troops to risk losing. Alright, with that done, we'll leave a mechanized unit behind. Everyone else is to charge forward. We could probably take these 2 provinces and cut off those Soviet forces, or we might want to stay and do even more. We lost that battle, but we have reinforcements on the way. Can we win that battle? Maybe. Not decisively, though. Oh wait, no, maybe we will be able to win it decisively. And that will be a quick encirclement. And these forces are roving forward. I'll be honest, I was really worried for a moment when Operation Black Ice didn't just completely roll over the Soviet Union. I was very worried that that was the beginning of the end of us. Oh crap, we lost the Battle of Odessa and all those forces. Oh, that's a very considerable loss. We lost an armored unit and most of our Marines. But we're going to do much more harm to the Soviets. Oh, well, we can't really dwell on it. These forces are all going to charge forward. And once we secure the area, we'll be able to begin reducing them. We'll send this group forward as well. Alright, so we did make a considerable tactical blunder with that. I didn't realize that they'd be able to defend so well against us to the extent that it actually would defeat us and do so much harm. Although, all in all, still a decently proceeding campaign. These forces will continue to move forward. And we're really going out on a limb here. You might want to start pulling forces back to just reduce this encirclement, reduce this pocket. We'll just charge this group over. We're winning that. Alright, that's good news. We're winning some of these battles, destroying the enemy forces. We'll move this group forward. We'll leave the mechanized forces behind. And we could maybe start moving some of these forces down. We'll take the armored unit over. And it looks as though we have destroyed that pocket, which is good. They do have just 1 core headquarters left. It doesn't really matter all that much. We could just go around and ensure it's destroyed. Although that really is just insult to injury at that point. It doesn't really have any relevance to the fight anymore. Alright, we are facing an enemy attack, although it's fairly weak. Alright, this armored unit will stay put. We'll rush these units down. We'll leave that unit there. This unit will go... We'll keep at least 1 unit on all of these border provinces if we're able to. Hopefully we'll get there before they do. These battles are going well. Unfortunately, that qualifies as a retreat because apparently we were under attack from somewhere. This battle is going poorly. We'll fall back from there. This unit will maybe charge up. Nope, that's not going to work. We'll leave this unit here to defend. Alright, we will actually fall back there. This unit will go up and just encircle that infantry force. And that will be good. This unit will go over, and with that we'll have completed the encirclement here. We'll bring this force down. And yeah, so we've encircled all those Soviet forces, which is nice. All these Soviet forces will hopefully get encircled soon. We'll bring in those reinforcements. Alright. Everything's kind of looking up on this front, this portion of the front at least. Alright, this group will bring down, see what we can do. Quite a bit of damage, it looks like. Alright, and we'll try to just destroy all those forces. Looks like they're now retreating from the city. They've realized the untenable nature of their position. We'll bring some reinforcements over. We'll have that group just attack, forcing them to retreat, which means that they're now just actively fleeing. They have naval support there, so they'll probably hold out, at least we can hope. Now these Soviet forces are trying to counter-encircle us. I don't really imagine that'll be much of a threat, although it could be. We did lose those Marines and forces, which is really bad news, but we don't really need Marines for the near future. That battle we have won, that battle we have won, and the Soviet Union becomes ever weaker. We will probably leave, let's see, we should probably leave the more organized group there, just so we don't get it cut off in the worst of cases. We'll charge down here to just cut off those forces, charge over there to do the same. And yeah, in a moment, we will destroy the entirety of this small Soviet force. And in the process, rescue the Hungarians, which is really great news, guys. We aren't dead yet. Remember that. We are not dead yet. Oh, yes, it's great news. Let's look at the lines. The Germans still falling back. We have managed to push back to where they already were at one point. Operation Bearing Our Burdens is going fairly well. We have managed to complete that portion of the operation. We are holding out these areas. Odessa proved to be just a terrible death trap. This horrible mess of a front is pretty much cleaned up. Alright. Things aren't going poorly. That is the most important thing to remember, is things are not going poorly. Right there, things are going kind of poorly, so we'll stop attacking right there. We'll bring this mechanized unit over to reinforce. And this unit has to rush back and defend. These guys will stay put. This unit will rush back and not actually do that because that's terrible. These forces are now facing a bit of an issue from just Soviet reprisals. Can this unit fight and fight well? Maybe, but perhaps not. Alright, so we'll just leave them there. We'll roll this troop around and back. And we won against them immediately. Alright, big issue is we just lost that province. Luckily, it will hopefully not matter too much, as we did take over Ayasi, which is good. It's a good place for us to hold. We'll rush these forces further in. Soviets already control the province. So we'll keep all of these forces where they're at for the moment. Americans are still pressing forward in India. We might lose this battle. Might lose a few battles. Alright, we've won right there. Can we rush these forces up quickly enough? Unfortunately, the Soviets are making considerable gains against us in some of these areas. And this is really a risky part of the front. It's the part that is the most at risk at this point. Alright. These forces are getting into position fairly quickly. Right there is definitely under threat. Will these units fare well at all against the Soviets? Not really, so we'll just keep them back. And we have divided the pocket at least somewhat. We have a bit of a rebellion going on. We're really doing poorly in this battle. We'll fall back. Hopefully be able to use this force to encircle them. Looks as though we lost that battle. Some of these battles are really not going favorably for us. We'll send these troops over. We'll send this group up. Oh, no, not what I meant to do. Please don't attack that. Alright, we'll send this group up, this group around, and we'll use the armored to press through, hopefully. Looks as though they are fighting us now. We'll try to send these groups over. Can this group not? What is it doing? It's being attacked by the looks of it. Alright, that will hopefully slow them down long enough that we can rush over. We need to get some reinforcements here, and we can hopefully hold the pocket. Alright, this unit's going to have to stop as it's just losing everything. That unit might be in a bad spot. We'll rush these men down. Battles are really erupting just all throughout the front. This area is now really under threat. We'll go rush in and try to defeat those forces. We'll attack the Soviets from here. Hopefully do a decent level of damage. We'll attack with everything here. We've won the Battle of Iasi, so we've defended the city. We're doing well against the Soviets just throughout. What we really need to be aware of is that this isn't indicative of them really making a comeback. This is indicative of them doing everything they possibly can to defend their forces before the part of the front that they're on collapses. So just because it looks in part like a disaster does not actually make it a disaster. We've lost the Battle of Binder, which is unfortunate. We don't have any rapid response forces nearby. This group will rush up. Looks as though the Soviets are really just attempting to break out everywhere they possibly can, which is completely understandable. This group was forced to withdraw. I don't believe we'll be able to reinforce right there, at least not quickly. These units are going to attempt to defeat them. We might have ended up getting a lot of our forces encircled. In fact, we technically did. Where are our air transports? Alright, first air transport. It's time for you to earn your keep. You're going to rush over here and rebase. Alright, a lot of things going on. Let's see. Oh man, unfortunately the Soviets managed to link their forces up here. Let's try to get them to detach. We did win that battle. Spanish forces still doing their thing. We'll roll over through here. Hopefully we'll win this battle and remain and keep those forces trapped still. This force is doing very poorly. We'll pull them back. Constant attacks throughout the front. All right. These forces are in a bit of a bad way, but we'll pull them back. These troops will have reinforce. Spanish nationalists being a problem. Alright, these areas are starting to collapse, so we'll really need to work on holding them as best as we can. Those forces will fall back. These troops will charge forward, hopefully do some damage. Alright, that troop, despite being terribly disorganized, is going to rush forward. These groups will rush into various directions. We'll have this group retreat back to here if possible. Doesn't look like it is actually possible. We'll have this group go back. Alright, that's held out, at least for now. The Soviet force appears to be pretty much doomed. And you'll notice the situation is really just going very intensely in a lot of ways. I'm sorry, I'm really not discussing what's happening. It's mainly just us and the Soviets attempting to do everything we can to encircle and counter-encircle one another's forces. We'll bring that force in whenever we can. We've defeated those Spanish rebels finally. This is that we're under attack, not terribly surprising. They're obviously going to be trying to save as many of their forces as they can. And you'll notice there really doesn't exist any sort of front line. It's just a terrible, convoluted mess as we attempt to encircle whatever forces we can, and they attempt to defend whatever forces they can. And if we're able to, we'll be able to cut off that group and destroy those 3 Soviet forces. And we did! Okay, cool, that's good, that's very good. That group will go down and then back up. That's good news. That's very, very good news. Can this group win? Looks like the Americans are attacking our defensive forces. They're just going to retreat. Alright, all of these units, congratulations, you are now AI-led. I guess just try to defend. Here's some victory points. Alright, do your job to the best of your ability. And I wish you the best, India. You are on your own. Alright, everywhere else, though, we will continue the fight in earnest everywhere except for India, where we are giving it up without a fight. Well, I mean, the AI will do its fighting. Now we still have these remaining Soviet forces to attempt to destroy, so let's get on that, shall we? This battle's going relatively poorly. We can try to bring some forces in. We might lose some ground to the Soviets, but we did a lot of damage to them, and that's the important part. Alright, that force did well. We'll leave behind these two groups. Everyone else is going to start pulling back. Can we ask them for military access? Impossible. Thanks, Hungary. You suck. At least they are actually retreating into them, though. Let's see. That battle's still going pretty poorly. We will have some reinforcements hopefully rolling in pretty soon. Can we win right? Could we win right there? Probably not. Maybe, though. Not really going to try it. This group can try retreat over down to here, perhaps. Nope, I guess they're all going into that area. And the Germans are doing their part. They are actually destroying these Soviet forces. We appear to be under attack over here. And the Soviets are going to get a lot of their forces back home. Not all of them, though. That's the important thing. Can we just retreat this force over to here? We can. Cool. Keeps it encircled. Doesn't matter. That's a problem for another time. Right here, this battle's still going really disastrously poorly. And we just lost it. And yeah, we're not going to get there in time. Alright. Not ideal, that, but not a disaster in and of itself. So we're getting attacked in this next province. Indian nationalists. Losing the Battle of Mazak pretty handedly. We'll send these forces to reinforce. That battle is not going to be easy, so we'll just not do it. Hopefully we'll win there. And it's still possible that we'll encircle at least a minor group of Soviet forces. Alright, let's pull back the most disorganized troops here. We won that battle. That battle's kind of a disaster. This battle we are now winning, though. Right here, still not great. We'll send another group of infantry over to reinforce. That group will keep where it is because it's pretty disorganized. These units are going to have to roll out back through Hungary and hopefully get back home. These units are all horrifically unorganized. And only that unit is organized in any way, shape, or form. Looks like we won the defense there. Hopefully this group will get in there to reinforce quickly enough. We'll send this group up and this group up as well. We're not going to really support them, we're going to just keep retreating. How's this doing? Fairly in our favor, that's good news. This area has fallen without really much of a fight. We'll send forces over to defend it. Alright, nothing's really going great here, but it looks as though it's at least not going terribly poorly. Did we lose the Battle of Mazak again? No, we won it this time. Cool. Go us. We'll charge these men forward, hopefully do some damage. We've won the Battle of Iasi. We're doing okay there. We can probably lend some armored support. And if this group of armored manages to actually make decent progress, we could make a secondary, smaller encirclement that'll probably be easier to actually hold out. And we did destroy that Soviet infantry group, so we'll keep that army there. This force will roll up to go reinforce, and it looks like the Caspian Mountain region is actually fully collapsing. I'm not sure if we'll be able to defeat those small Soviet forces trapped behind the lines. We'll give it an attempt. We'll reinforce right there to keep that province under our control. This battle's going much better now that we got those additional forces in to reinforce. Right here is still going really poorly, and I'll probably just have to give that up. Looks like most of these forces have retreated, but not all of them, and that's the important distinction. Alright, we won right there. We lost in Cahul, which means our forces are going to keep retreating with the Hungarians. Just terribly disorganized. We don't actually want to advance. Minus 81 in Binder, which is probably going to fall. We'll retreat that group over to here. Right there we are facing some stiff enemy resistance. We'll roll this force down. USA making great gains in India. We're running out of fuel. How much fuel are we using? Good God. Okay, wow. That's considerable. We're really hemorrhaging fuel. That is amazing. I mean, not amazing in a good way, but that is actually, that is impressive. Good Lord. We're using 5,000 fuel a day? 6,000? Really? Jesus. War is pretty intense. Alright, where are we getting attacked from? Several places. Basically everywhere. Alright, everyone just keep going up there. Try to defend against everything, everywhere. Pretty straightforward order. Really, the difficulty is going to be in implementation. This group will go up. This group will go over. We probably just lost this battle. Yeah, it's not too surprising. Let's see. You guys are going to go defend actively by launching a counterattack. Alright, that small Soviet attack was destroyed entirely. These forces are going to retreat back and hopefully get back into friendly territory. This group's going to rush in and try to destroy the enemies there. Sadly, we lost another battle. These forces can just kind of chill now, though. Yeah, that group's going to be pretty disorganized in a moment. Soviets are definitely bringing in some forces. They apparently do not want to lose these armies, which, you know, kind of understandable, I'll begrudgingly admit. How's this battle doing? Pretty poorly, too. Alright. Will that help? No, that doesn't even help. Alright, this group is going to have to begin the process of retreating. Hopefully they picked a good direction to retreat to. Coal to oil conversion, we apparently can't get that just yet, which is probably going to be a problem because it looks like it's something we need. This group's going to fall back. This group's going to just kind of stay put. And now that they're under attack, they're going to fall back immediately because we do not want them to be encircled. These groups are going to charge over and around. Looks like they're trying to be a little uppity right there, so we'll just stop them. Nip that in the bud. We're right about in an hour, so in a moment we'll probably stop and then just reconsider the strategic position we find ourselves in now. We nearly did this encirclement. We just never quite managed to fully pull it off, which is a bit sad. We'll stop attacking right there because we need to get our organization back. These forces will all just stay where they're at, really. These units will probably need to reorganize for another offensive in the future. And we have a huge pileup of forces there. Alright, so, it's been an hour. We'll stop right here. Let's take a moment to overview the situation. We did some decent damage to the Soviet Southern Army in Ukraine. Our forces are pretty disorganized, and we'll have to take care of that at some point. Let's take a look at the command overview and just get a sense of how horribly disorganized our armies have become. The main thing is, though, we now have a river to defend ourselves here. We lost control over these riverside territories, which is a very bad thing. However, we'll hopefully have more armored units in June or July, which we can hopefully use to thrust back up through here, or maybe land again in Odessa and then roll up into this area. That might be a little bit much, though. At any rate, we have a defensive location for the near future. We've managed to slow the collapse of the Germans. They're still losing lands, not really making any gains. However, we defended Hungary to an extent. Their borders were up to here, so that explains why the Soviets are still making gains in this area. Over here, the encirclement plan kind of failed, and we are at moderate to low risk of getting encircled, at least of losing this group, which is probably the most likely thing that would happen. So I'd say mid to low level concern of moderate encirclement by the enemy. Probably low chance of encircling that group. We have destroyed the Soviet Southern Force, which is great news. We can dedicate more forces up to here. This area seems to be entirely static at this point, which is neither good nor bad. It really doesn't exist in a meaningful way except as a way to tie down Soviet forces, as they don't want us to launch a major outbreak from this area, which could do a tremendous amount of damage to their country. Let's see. Japan is doing mediocre. Still no noticeable gains or losses on their front. The Americans are definitely doing a lot of damage to the Japanese at this point. And they're doing damage to us in India. All of our defensive units are funneling over into the area to try to launch some sort of half-hearted defense. Just cavalry and rocket artillery will probably not be able to do very much harm to the Americans. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of losses for them. I don't believe Australia. Yeah, they're only at war with the Soviets, not at war with the Allies, which is probably for the best, as we would just lose them to the Americans if they were actively on our side. On the bright side, let's see. Yeah, we did considerable damage to the Soviets. The only real negative thing that happened to us was the loss of our Marines in the horrible street fighting that undoubtedly took place in Odessa. That limited our effectiveness somewhat, although I wouldn't say too very much. Ultimately, though, thank you very much for watching. When we come back, the war's gonna continue. It's probably gonna drag on for quite some time, to be perfectly honest. But we're in it for the long haul now. We've fought the Soviets, and we've done good damage to them. There was a bit of a disaster there, but it ultimately pulled through fairly well. Thanks again for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow.